When my uncle sent me the video, my entire world shifted. There they were, my parents and my brother, Thomas, sitting around our old kitchen table in Phoenix, speaking about me as if I were nothing more than an obligation. The golden Arizona sunlight filtered through the windows, painting the room in warmth, a stark contrast to the coldness of their words. Lindsay only helps because she owes us, my mother scoffed, her tone laced with resentment. After everything we've done for her, covering the mortgage is the least she can do. Thomas smirked. Yeah, and she acts like she's doing us some huge favor. What a joke. But the worst part, my father's silence, the man who once held my bike steady as I learned to ride, who patiently walked me through math problems at the dining table, simply nodded in quiet agreement. The video was grainy, clearly recorded in secret, but their words cut through with perfect clarity. I watched it 3 times. Each replay stripped away another layer of disbelief, leaving only a raw, bitter truth. For 4 years, I had shouldered the weight of their mortgage through my LLC, Divine Investments. They thought they were making payments to a bank, never once questioning the fine print of the agreement my financial advisor had carefully structured. Every month, they sent in their modest share, while I covered the bulk, over $200,000 in total, all while they complained about my minimal help. Then came Uncle Jason's message. You needed to see this, Lindsay. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. They'd been talking like this for months. I sat in my home office, staring at the spreadsheets tracking every payment I had made. The numbers didn't lie. My hands should have been shaking. Instead, they were steady as I pulled up the mortgage agreement, my gaze landing on a single clause my financial advisor had insisted on including. Just in case, Kate had said. At the time, I thought it was unnecessary. Now, I wondered if she had seen this coming. The next payment was due in 2 weeks, and for the first time, I knew exactly what needed to happen. I picked up my phone and typed a message to my uncle. Thank you for showing me the truth. Don't worry, I won't let them know it was you, but things are about to change. For years, I had been the family's safety net, though they would never admit it. When the Phoenix housing market collapsed, they were on the verge of losing their home. I was 27 then, already thriving as a software development manager. The irony? They never approved of my career. Software is no career for a woman, my mother had often said, her lips pressed into a tight line. Your brother, Thomas, is the one with real business sense. Yet Thomas, with all his supposed business sense, had nearly driven the family's real estate company into bankruptcy within 2 years. When they needed help, I had sought Kate's advice. She proposed a solution. Set up an LLC, buy the house through it, let them think they're dealing with a bank. That way, you protect yourself while still helping them. At the time, it had seemed like the perfect compromise. They kept their pride, I kept my family stable. Uncle Jason was the only one who knew the truth. He had overheard Kate and me discussing it at a family gathering. You're too good to them, Lindsay, he had told me. They don't deserve your kindness. I had defended them. Their family, they might not understand my choices, but they've always given me a home. Now, watching that video for the 4th time, I realized how wrong I had been. She owes us. What a joke. The least she can do. Each phrase felt like a knife twisting deeper. I pulled up the LLC's account. The next mortgage payment was due soon. They had never been late before, sending their portion like clockwork. But this time, I wouldn't cover the difference. Let them deal with the consequences of their ingratitude. Let them figure out what happens when their so-called burden steps away. They had no idea that the daughter they dismissed, the one they saw as nothing more than an obligation, was actually their landlord. A smile ghosted across my lips. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push. The next day, Uncle Jason sent more proof, screenshots from a family group chat I had been deliberately excluded from. They had created it 6 months ago. The name, Family Finances. Every message was another betrayal, each one twisting the knife a little deeper. Lindsay thinks she's so special with her tech job, Thomas had written. She barely helps with the mortgage while I'm here every day running Dad's business. But it was my mother's response that made my stomach turn. We should ask her for more money. She's single with no kids. What else is she spending it on? After everything we sacrificed to raise her, she can't even properly support her family. I pulled up my financial records. My hands trembled slightly as I calculated the totals. In 4 years, I had contributed $267,843 to their mortgage through Divine Investments. They, $52,500. They hadn't even been covering a quarter of their own home. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Sweetie, could you come to dinner this Sunday? We need to discuss something important." I already knew what that something was. They were planning to ask for more money, disguising their greed with guilt and manipulation. The thought of sitting across from them, pretending I didn't know, made me sick. Instead, I called Kate. "I need to know my options with the purchase agreement." She didn't sound surprised. "I figured this day would come," she said. "Remember that clause? If they miss a payment, Divine Investments can exercise the purchase option immediately." I exhaled, feeling something unexpected settle over me. Relief. For the first time in years, I was ready to let go. The house would be yours outright, and they'd become month-to-month tenants, Kate confirmed. If they're late on rent, standard Arizona eviction laws would apply. A plan started forming in my mind, piece by piece. "You'd be within your rights to give them notice," she continued, then hesitated. "Lindsay, are you sure you want to go through with this?" I thought of the years of condescension, of being the family's ATM while they mocked me behind my back, of Thomas driving our father's business into the ground while they praised his non-existent business sense, of every dismissive comment about my career, my life choices, my supposed obligations to them. "Yes," I said, my voice steady, "I'm sure, but I won't tell them anything yet. Let them think everything's normal." I texted my mother back, "Of course, I'll come to dinner, looking forward to it." The heart emoji felt ironic, but necessary. After all, they had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge requires a perfect poker face. The next mortgage payment was due in 13 days. For the first time, I wouldn't be there to catch them when they fell. Sunday dinner. By the time I arrived at 6 p.m., the desert sky was painted in deep oranges and purples. The house, technically my house, looked exactly as it had for the past 20 years. My mother's lasagna filled the air with its familiar, calculated warmth. "Lindsay, sweetheart," she cooed, pulling me into a hug. A designer bracelet caught the light, new, undoubtedly purchased with money that should have gone toward their mortgage payment, now due in 9 days. Thomas lounged at the dining table, looking smug in his crisp business casual attire. "Hey, sis, good of you to make time for your family." I smiled, remembering his words from the group chat, "She barely helps with the mortgage." If he only knew his entire lifestyle depended on my generosity. "I always have time for family," I replied, the irony thick on my tongue. My father emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose, skimming bank statements, preparing their pitch. "Before we eat," my mother said, setting the lasagna down, "we wanted to talk about something important." She shot a glance at my father, who nodded. "Of course," I said, serving myself a portion. "What's on your mind?" Thomas cleared his throat. "Well, as you know, Dad's business has been facing challenges. The real estate market isn't what it used to be." I took a slow bite. The market was fine. The business was struggling because Thomas was incompetent. "We've been thinking," my mother continued, reaching for my hand in a carefully staged gesture, "about how blessed we are to have such a successful daughter. Your father and I sacrificed so much to give you a good education." "Ah, the sacrifices speech, right on schedule." "The mortgage has become a real burden," my father added, his voice laced with that familiar paternal authority, the same tone he used to make me feel small. "And since you're doing so well in your computer software development," I corrected automatically. Right, he waved dismissively. "We thought perhaps you could contribute a little more toward the monthly payments. After all, this is your family home too." If only they knew how much of it was already mine. "We're only asking for an extra $2,000 a month," my mother chimed in. "It's not much, considering your salary." I took another bite, maintaining my mask of neutrality. They wanted $2,000 more on top of what they thought I was barely helping with, when in reality, I was already covering $5,400 a month. Their audacity was almost impressive. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "Times are a bit uncertain right now." "Uncertain?" Thomas scoffed. "Please, we all know you're doing fine, unlike some of us who are actually working hard to keep this family's legacy alive." I smiled, thinking about the notification their bank would send when they missed next week's payment. "You're right, Thomas. I said. Sometimes, we all get exactly what we deserve. The truth in the shadows. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom but took a deliberate detour past my father's study. The door was ajar. Their voices drifted out, low and urgent. "She's not going to help," Thomas snapped. "Did you see how she just sat there, acting all superior with her tech money while our business is struggling?" "Patience," my father said. "We have another option." My mother's voice, softer but no less venomous. "Remember those investment documents I found in her cloud storage when she used our Wi-Fi last month?" My blood ran cold. They had snooped through my files. I had carelessly used their Wi-Fi without a VPN, and my cloud storage had auto-synced. I looked it up. My father continued. "Divine Investments. It's a legitimate LLC. She's been hiding money there instead of helping her family." A slow, eerie calm settled over me. "A snake," my mother hissed. "We'll give her one more chance to help voluntarily. If not, I'll remind her about that time in college when she borrowed money from your business account for tuition. She thought we never knew, but we have proof. She'll have to help us then." I almost laughed out loud. That money, the loan I had taken, my father had given me permission to borrow it when their check for my tuition bounced. I had repaid it, with interest. I had emails proving every transaction. "And if that doesn't work," Thomas added, "we can always reach out to her HR department. Maybe suggest she's been stealing company resources for personal projects. That would get their attention." A chill ran through me. They were willing to destroy my career, my livelihood, to squeeze more money out of me. These people weren't family, they were parasites. I slipped away before they noticed, rinsed my hands in the sink, and returned to the dining room. They walked in moments later, all wearing pleasant, practiced smiles. "Lindsay, dear," my mother said sweetly, "have you given any thought to helping more with the mortgage?" I met her gaze, steady and unreadable. "Actually, I have," I said. "You're right, family should help family." I smiled. "I'll have an answer for you in about 8 days. The timeline wasn't random. Their mortgage payment was due in 8 days, and when they failed to pay, Divine Investments would finally reveal its true owner." 8 days? Thomas frowned. "Why such a specific timeline?" I simply shrugged. "You'll see." I stood up, grabbing my purse. "Just need to check with my financial advisor. You understand, right? Being careful with money is just good business sense." I flashed a smile at Thomas, mirroring their favorite phrase. My mother walked me to the door, pulling me into another calculated hug. "We knew you'd understand, sweetheart. Family always comes first." "Yes," I said, my voice steady, thinking of the eviction notice I had already drafted. Family always gets exactly what they deserve. As I drove home, I dialed my Uncle Jason. "You were right about them," I said when he answered, "but don't worry, I'm done playing the silent partner in their little drama. It's time for the final act." The week dragged by an excruciating slowness. Every day, my family bombarded me with texts about their urgent financial situation. The messages only reinforced my resolve. I forwarded everything to Kate, my financial advisor, who helped me prepare for the final confrontation. "The paperwork's ready," Kate confirmed 3 days before the payment was due. "Once they miss the payment, Divine Investments can exercise its purchase option immediately. I've also prepped the eviction notices, just in case." I nodded, reviewing the documents. "You're sure everything's legally sound? They can't fight this. They signed the agreement 4 years ago. Your father barely read it. He was too desperate for the bailout. Everything's ironclad." That evening, my brother launched his own attack. "Hey sis," his text read, "I was just talking to my friend in tech recruitment. Heard some companies are doing layoffs. Must be scary for you. Good thing you have family to fall back on. Speaking of which, about that help we discussed." The attempt at manipulation was so transparent, it was almost laughable. I showed the message to Uncle Jason over coffee the next day. "They never change," he muttered, shaking his head. "Your aunt and I distanced ourselves from them years ago. Did you know they went through my files when I visited?" I asked. "Not surprised. They did the same to your cousin when she stayed there last year. They're always looking for leverage." He paused. "Are you ready for the fallout? They won't take this well." I thought about their threats to contact my company's HR, their blackmail attempts, the years of taking my help while mocking me behind my back. "I'm ready. They made their choice. Now they'll face the consequences." 2 days before the payment was due, My mother called. Lindsay, we need your answer about the mortgage help. Times are tough, and family needs to stick together. Don't worry, Mom, I replied, my voice steady. Everything will be clear very soon. That night, I got an email from the family's bank. They'd tried to transfer money to Divine Investments, but the payment had bounced. They were overdrawn. I forwarded the notification to Kate. Here we go, she replied. Want me to start the proceedings tomorrow? I thought about the lasagna dinner, their smug faces, and their casual threats to ruin my career, the years of manipulation and ungratefulness. No, I typed back. Let's wait until the payment officially fails. Let them spend the next 2 days thinking everything's fine. They taught me well, timing is everything. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to HR, documenting the threats and including the evidence Uncle Jason had gathered. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. Sometimes, I muttered to myself, the best revenge is letting people face the consequences of their own actions. The payment deadline came and went. At 9 a.m. sharp, Divine Investments' automated system sent out its default notice. I watched my phone, counting down the seconds until the inevitable call. It took exactly 12 minutes. Lindsay, my mother's voice crackled through the phone. Frantic, something's wrong with our mortgage payment. The bank says we defaulted, but that's impossible. We need your help immediately. Actually, I said calmly, Divine Investments isn't a bank, it's an LLC, my LLC, to be specific. The silence on the other end was deafening. What? She whispered. Check your email. You'll find a notice explaining that, due to your default, Divine Investments is exercising its purchase option. The house is now legally mine. Your status has been changed to month-to-month tenants. This is a joke, she stammered. No joke. I've been covering the majority of your mortgage for 4 years while you all mocked me behind my back, called me a burden, plotted to blackmail me, threatened my career. How did you? Uncle Jason showed me the video. He showed me everything. Now, about your tenancy, your first rent payment is due in 30 days. I suggest you start looking for somewhere else to live. My father's voice broke in, loud and furious. They'd put me on speaker. You ungrateful. Careful, I cut him off. Is that any way to talk to your landlord? The eviction notice is ready. Don't make me serve it sooner than planned. I ended the call and blocked their numbers. Within minutes, my inbox flooded with messages from flying monkeys, distant relatives, family friends, telling me I was cruel, that family should forgive family. I deleted them all. Some debts can't be paid with forgiveness. 3 months later, I stood in the empty house, my footsteps echoing through the vacant rooms. My family had moved out last week, downsized to an apartment across town. They'd tried everything, threats, guilt trips, legal challenges, but in the end, the documents were ironclad. They had no choice but to accept reality. Thomas's attempt to contact HR had backfired spectacularly. Thanks to my preemptive documentation and Uncle Jason's evidence, his accusations were dismissed immediately. His actions were reported to his real estate board, leading to an ethics investigation that ended his career. My mother's final attempt at manipulation came through a tear-filled voicemail. How could you do this to your own family? The answer was simple. They had shown me exactly what family meant to them, and I had finally believed them. I walked through the kitchen, where it had all started, where they'd sat around the table, calling me worthless while I paid their bills. The irony wasn't lost on me. Uncle Jason and his wife were coming over later to help me prepare the house for sale. The proceeds would go toward establishing a foundation for victims of financial abuse. Something good could come from all this. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Just heard from their lawyer. They're finally signing the last papers. It's really over. I smiled, looking around the empty house one last time. They had taught me that family always comes first, but they'd never specified which family. I chose myself, for the first time in years. That felt exactly right.